Okay, let's set the stage for today's small adventure. My original plan was to get on the scooter and head back to Mesot today, but last night I changed my mind and I decided to stay here in Umphang one more day and go back to Mesot tomorrow. That should give me plenty of time, I think, to head into immigration and deal with my latest visa extension. Fingers crossed, as always. And today I picked a new direction to go on my scooter, heading out of Umphang that way. The road is the same road that goes past the Takobi Cave, the wilderness conservation area there that has the Takobi Cave inside that I visited a couple of days ago. And if you continue another it's about a total of 16 kilometers from here to where I want to go. There's a kind of a triangular section of road that I want to drive around. It looks like another sort of flat area, kind of a river valley with a lot of villages, farming communities spread out there. And one of the communities has a teak temple. I think it's called I have so much trouble with names. Wat Nong Luang, I believe. And it caught my eye because this temple, it's a Buddhist temple, is made entirely out of teak. And I think that could be quite interesting. It's something, a destination for me, a place to drive to and something to look at when I get there. Most of the temples here, of course, tend towards gold, like gold displays, gold plating around everything. Very bright and very yellow. And this temple, as I said, is made entirely out of teak, out of wood, so it probably has quite a different atmosphere. And I noticed on the Google Maps listing, it said something about there is a coffee shop there. So a teak temple and a coffee shop, and I saw a photograph of a pond full of fish, so it looks like it could be an interesting place to drive to. And the location of this village and the temple is actually 5 kilometers from the border with Myanmar. So if you drove past this temple for just a short distance, you'd find yourself right at the border with Myanmar. I looked at it from, Google satellite view, and I don't think there's an official border crossing there. Obviously, I'm not going to Myanmar, but I just thought it was interesting that this temple is so close to the border, and you could actually drive just a few kilometers onward and just sort of stand there at the border. But I don't think I will do that because surely there are some officials or some military or border patrol there, especially because of the situation in Myanmar right now. And I don't want to make them nervous by just sort of driving up as a tourist, heading towards the border, and they'll wonder, where does this guy think he's going? So I won't head in that direction, but just to give you an idea of the location of this place and where I'm heading. Helmet. Yeah. Yeah. Tonight. Yeah. As far as my technology life goes, I'm still struggling. My Rode Wireless Go microphone is still cutting out constantly. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and I can't figure out a pattern to when it works and when it doesn't work, so I don't know what is wrong. And today I'm not using the Rode, I'm actually using a lavalier microphone just plugged into the GoPro with this cord to a microphone underneath my shirt. And you don't know how, nearly hit a chicken. You don't know how convenient a wireless microphone really is until you're suddenly using a wired lavalier mic again, because this wire just gets in the way constantly. It's going to cause all kinds of trouble today, I think. So yeah, I still don't know. Is the problem the Rode wireless microphone? Is it broken? Is my GoPro broken? Is the cord broken? It's just impossible to pinpoint where the problem is coming from so far. And of course, my GoPros are falling apart as well. I'm using GoPro number 1 mounted on the scooter pointing forward. That's this one here. But I can use it, if I fight with it, I can get it to turn on, and it kind of works for a while, though it may stop working just at random points. I don't know what's wrong with it, so I can't really depend on it very much. So I have Armando over there, GoPro number 2. It's my main GoPro for the day. Noticed on my drive yesterday that the sun was really burning my skin. I'm pretty much adjusted to the sun here in Thailand, but something about the sun right now and the amount of time that I was out in the sun yesterday, I could really feel it, so I slathered on a bit of sunscreen today. The other day I was talking about all the local elections that are going on and how I'm puzzled by the local signs, because underneath every picture of a candidate there is a number and the letter X, and they're all different. So one candidate for some reason has a big number 1 and an X, like 1X. The other one might be 10X or 18X. So I was wondering what those numbers could mean. I still haven't been able to find out. But interestingly enough, the manager of my guest house, he appears to be involved in the election. Either he's working just as a government employee, an organizer of the elections, or he's working on behalf of one of the candidates, I'm not sure. But I noticed that he was always sitting down at the dining room table at the guest house, and he was going over long lists in notebooks, marking them, counting them, organizing them, and he's been doing that for days, and I've been curious what he was up to. So I finally asked him, and that's when he told me that he was involved in the local election. And that also explained why he's been away so much. I really haven't seen him at the guest house at all. He disappears in the morning and I don't see him all day, and that's because he's out working for the election. Though he isn't today, this is a funny story. I was just sitting down this morning with my phone and my keyboard and a cup of coffee, just getting organized for the day, and he came up to me and said, would I like to go to a wedding celebration? He invited me to his friend's wedding, which apparently is taking place in a village quite far away. And I had mixed reactions to that invitation. On the one hand, of course, you want to say, oh, absolutely, that would be a very interesting experience, to to attend a local wedding celebration. It would be an interesting day. I'm sure these people don't know me at all, of course, but I would probably be treated as something of a guest of honor. So I wanted to say, yeah, I'd love to come to this wedding, and I could have gone with him today. But, of course, I already had plans for today, and he was leaving that very minute. He gave me the invitation at the exact minute that he was leaving to go to the wedding. So if I wanted to go with him, accept his invitation, I basically would have had to just hopped on my scooter and gone with him at that exact minute. And I wasn't really prepared to go, physically or mentally. I mean, I would need, I don't know, give me half an hour or an hour to sort of get ready, to change my clothes and take a shower or do whatever it is I needed to do to get ready to go with him. And even if I could physically have done it, I wasn't mentally prepared to spend a day at a wedding of people that I don't know. I've done similar things in the past, because as a foreigner overseas, you do get invited to a lot of things, and they're always interesting experiences. But at the same time, as they can be enjoyable, they can also be a bit tiring. You generally don't know what's going on, you don't know where you're going, you don't understand the situation, and you don't know how long you're going to be there. All this kind of information is rather hard to come by. So I find, for me to accept an invitation like that, I need at least a day warning. You know, I need at least a day to prepare mentally and physically for this experience, to be able to enjoy it and to be fully present, you know what I mean? I was writing an email to a friend of mine this morning, and I talked about that a little bit, how when you're overseas, you are often at the receiving end of a lot of very kind invitations, a lot of gestures of help, but because of perhaps the difference in cultures, then maybe language barrier or some other issues, quite often these invitations and kind offers, are not quite packaged in the way you'd like. A funny example is that every morning here at the guest house, I make myself a cup of instant coffee using the kettle in the kitchen there in the dining area. And the woman who works at the guest house, she's noticed my habit, and she has made it her job to refill the kettle for me. So every time she sees me settling down for a morning coffee routine, she rushes over to the kettle and fills it to the top. And she's doing this as a kind gesture to help me. But the end result is it actually makes my life more complicated, because it's a big kettle and I don't need that much water. I only need enough for 1 cup of coffee. So I would normally just fill it up a little bit, you know, a little bit above the minimum fill point, and then the water boils in 2 or 3 minutes. But because she fills this kettle all the way to the top every time, it can take like 10 minutes for this kettle to come to a boil. Plus, she fills it so far, like all the way to the top, that she's overfilled it, and when the kettle starts to boil, the water goes spraying out of the spout and sprays boiling water all over the place, which makes a big mess that I end up having to clean up. And it's kind of dangerous, because if I don't realize it, I could be standing there waiting for it to boil, and suddenly there's this geyser of boiling water flying across the room. So you know, you always have this funny situation where someone tries to do something very nice for you, a kind gesture, but it ends up actually having the opposite effect. Instead of making my life better, it actually makes my life a little bit more challenging in the moment. And that's a very common situation, I find, when I'm overseas. There's something interesting going on. This is also a very common sight when you're scootering or cycling in a rural, like a farming area. It looks to me like they're harvesting corn, perhaps. And I think this machine is husking the corn or removing the corn kernels from the cob. So from what I know from previous experiences, a company or a man will own one of these machines, and then he will take it from farm to farm throughout the whole region when they are harvesting. So he'll spend a day here going through their corn harvest, and then tomorrow he'll go to another farm, and of course he gets paid for their services. I don't want to get much closer on my scooter, but maybe I can stop here and then I'll walk up there and get a closer look. I don't think they'll mind. So there's the corn harvesting machine behind me. I think when I get closer, I won't be able to record any audio. It'll be too loud. So as I walk up there, I probably won't be able to say anything, but we'll see. Kind of funny standing here because you get all the dust blowing through the air. I'm getting covered in corn dust. So let's go take a closer look. Look at that. So that is very cool. I got here just in time because they got to the end of the first load, maybe. Oh, it looks like yeah, they had sacks of corn, and now they just shut down the machinery. So funny though, I keep talking about how my IQ drops when I turn on the GoPro. That's so true because I'm concentrating on what I'm saying and I don't really pay as much attention to my environment as I should. And I walked right up to this operation and I didn't realize that the corn cobs were being blasted out of that machine, you know, like shells out of a shotgun. So I walked right up to that and I nearly walked right into that area where I would have been hit in the head with all these corn cobs flying through the air. wouldn't have heard. You know, they weren't flying that fast, but of course I should have walked all the way around it, which is what I did, but I wasn't paying attention. But I think there's another load being prepared. Got a truck here. Yeah, it looks like it is a full to the brim with corn on the cob. So I think these guys are waiting for them to finish, and then they'll back the truck up, dump the whole load here, and then start. They're not husking the corn because the corn has already been dehusked. But I don't know what you call this process where you're removing the kernels from the corn cob. Yeah, they're getting ready for the next load. A bit windy today, so they got to make sure the tarp doesn't blow away. Awesome farm truck. No doors at all on this side. Oh, both sides, yeah, they're just no doors, period. What do they need doors for? It's quite the load of corn. Yeah, I'm sure this driver has done this 1,000 times in his life. He's probably going to dump the load and then move forward as the bed goes up, so he can spread it out over this whole area. I don't think he'll dump the whole load right there. We'll find out. It's got to get lined up a bit better. As always, I'm so curious about the economics, how much the corn is worth, how much they have to pay, the farmer has to pay this guy to rent that machine for the day. And of course these women here that are working will get paid a daily rate for working here and loading up the corn. And then they have to pack up all the bags. A lot of discussion about exactly how to dump the corn. Oh, look at that. I wasn't expecting that at all. They're going to dump it directly into the hopper. I don't know how that's going to work out. Okay, maybe that makes maybe that's more efficient. Check this out. Uh-oh. Again, with my IQ dropping, I just realized I parked my scooter right on the road, and a truck wants to get out. Will he be able to get around? Yeah. I was so focused on coming back here that I didn't really think about where I left my scooter. Ah, just the lower part comes loose. Oh, okay. And there's an opening there. Okay. Now I kind of get it. So they actually have a little chute opening. I thought they were going to dump the whole load at once, but it's more efficient than that. But the tailgate, they can't open it. The tailgate is going to hit the hopper. you go. So now they're creating kind of a makeshift chute for all the corn to flow between these two bags. Let's take a closer look at this thing. So you got a tractor basically, and then this machine. Whoa! They wanted him to move forward, but I guess he moved a bit too far. So this is the chute where the cobs come flying out of. They go into this hopper after they remove the kernels, and then they go down into here, and then it looks like some mechanism in there shoots them out, and they hit this net and then fall into the pile. Yeah, they're very lightweight, so dry, there's nothing to them. Still, this is not where you want to be standing when they fire it up, so I'm going to get out of the way. They're almost ready to give their system a try. So there's the whole operation. Very cool to see. The belt going around, of course, is made out of rubber, and each little paddle is made out of metal. You know, that's been riveted to the rubber. The rubber, the rubber belt. Yeah, the rubber belt. I wonder if they have a spare belt and all those sorts of things. I guess another job for the women that are here is to climb up into the truck, and they have to constantly feed the rest of the load towards the back in order for it to flow out and down the chute. Reminds me very much of a lot of the machinery that I see in TV shows like Gold Rush, where they have to have a belt to feed in the rocks into a hopper, and then there's a shaker deck, just like when they're mining gold. So the shaker deck is shaking the corn, and then I guess there's some kind of a mechanism in there that removes the kernels. I moved a bit further away just to get away from the sound. A couple of things occurred to me when the women climbed up into the back of the truck. I noticed that after a couple of minutes, all these flip-flops came flying out because someone, I think, reminded them that to go in the truck like that, you shouldn't wear your sandals or your flip-flops, because if you lose one of them and it goes into the hopper and they don't notice it, something like that could probably damage the mechanism, right? So they probably also have to be very careful that pieces of wood and rock and stone don't mix in with the corn, because yeah, a rock going up there could probably destroy the whole mechanism. The other thing that struck me though is the noise. When I was close to that device, that machinery, it's incredibly loud. I mean, it is hearing damaging loud. To be working next to that all day long, I think you'd probably want to have ear protection, hearing protection. I certainly would, I think. That is one loud machine. they're moving through that load of corn really fast. That machine, it does not mess around. I've only been here a few minutes and the whole load is almost done already. One occupational hazard of doing this work is clearly going home dusty. These people will need a refreshing shower when they go home. Look at my arm just from being here for a few minutes. Yeah, I think my eyes and my ears, my hair, oh good grief. My hair is full of corn dust. They seem to be taking a break from their work. I think they're just getting organized to get the last bit of corn out of that truck. I've tried to wave a goodbye and a thanks to them, but they're no one has been looking in my direction. They're too busy working. Oh man, look at that. Oh, too bad I wasn't closer to capture that on video. Corn slide. That woman was sliding down the slope like the corn was snow. It was a corn. She was a corn toboggan. Oh man, look at that. Oh, too bad I wasn't closer to capture that on video. Corn slide. That woman was sliding down the slope like the corn was snow. It was a corn. She was a corn toboggan. All right. Very cool little pit stop. Just as I was leaving there, I waved goodbye, and everyone on the truck waved goodbye. So they saw me as I was leaving. No one there spoke English that I could talk to or ask any questions. In any event, the machinery was so loud that we probably wouldn't have been able to talk to each other anyway. I can feel all the corn dust in my ears. It's tickling. And this is the entrance to the park with the Takobi Cave. This is the sign for the Tam Takobi Forest Park that I visited the other day. And the cave is just a couple of hundred meters down this road. And as I mentioned in the other video, I found out later on that this cave is no joke. It actually extends underground for a distance of 7 kilometers. So you could really go for quite a walk through that cave if you wanted to. Though I don't know how much of that 7 kilometers is open to a casual spelunker, or whether you'd have to be a professional to go further than I went into the cave. One interesting thing you always notice on roads is whenever you see a sign that gives a warning about speed, almost immediately after that sign, you see signs of all kinds of accidents. So there was a sign back there that said, reduce speed. And when I saw that sign that said, reduce speed, I knew that just a few feet ahead or a few meters ahead, you would see indications of places where cars had locked up their brakes, smashed into the barriers and done stuff like that. Okay, road sign stop. Just ahead there's an intersection, and that's where the triangle begins that I'm going to. You can turn, at least I think so, I'll have to double check with the map. And the place I'm going to is called Ban Nong Luang, I think, though I thought it was further away still than 4 kilometers. An odd thing is that this sign indicates the Lo Su waterfall is 36 kilometers to the left, but my understanding is that 30 of those kilometers is down a rough jungle trail that can only be done by 4x4. But when I first saw this sign, I thought, oh, maybe I can drive my scooter right to the waterfall. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that. The intersection up ahead is the intersection where I turn right to go to the village with the teak temple. And you would turn left at this intersection to go to the access road to the Lo Su waterfall. There's a sign for the waterfall. And here's a checkpoint. Here's some directional signs. The Hua Nong Luang Forest Ranger Station, the Pha Luad Forest Ranger Station. As I said, I've seen a dozen of them at least right in this area, ranger stations. There's a lot of them. And 32.5 kilometers to the waterfall. I still don't know whether it's Thi Lor Su or T Lor Su. I don't know what the proper pronunciation is. But my destination for today is in this direction. I looked at the men at that checkpoint and waved and nodded at them, and they waved and smiled back, but they didn't indicate that I needed to stop there. So maybe it's only if you're going in the other direction. Really smooth road though, very different from my River Valley road from yesterday. Brand new pavement here. I think I've arrived at the village of Ban Nong Luang, and the teak temple is here somewhere. I'll just drive into town and check Google Maps, figure out where to go. It's amazing how much Google Maps has transformed this kind of experience. In the old days, you would have a lot more trouble doing something like this simple trip to look at a temple. With Google Maps at your fingertips, it's so easy. You always know exactly where you are and relative to where you want to go. And you have such confidence that you can go anywhere without any kind of stress or worry. I still mentally kick myself when I think back to when I left from Taiwan a few years ago, because at that time smartphones and Google mapping and satellite mapping was quite common, but for some reason I had ignored it completely, and I'd never updated my technology, and I had nothing like that with me. And I remember flying into Kuala Lumpur from the Philippines, and I spent a long time at the airport going from shop to shop to shop looking for maps. I wanted a map of Malaysia, a map of Kuala Lumpur, because I was on a touring bicycle and I wanted to be able to find my way. And it was quite a frustrating experience, and yet all I really needed was a smartphone, and I could have found my way from the airport into Kuala Lumpur quite easily. But for whatever reason, I had a blind spot where smartphones and tablets and Google Maps was concerned. I had no idea that that technology was as advanced as it was. This should be the access road to the Teak Temple, Wat Nong Luang. Oh, I think that's it, just over here to the left. I don't know if this is the main entrance. As always, I'm never quite sure what to do with my scooter at places like this. I notice, scooters off there to the right, parked on the grass. Just something I wouldn't normally do, but if other people have done it, I guess that's the local tradition. Join these scooters in the shade. We've arrived at the Teak Temple, and I think the main Teak Temple building is situated right over there, and another temple, more of an administrative building over there. They have a nice lawn here, nice grounds. And they seem to have some kind of a school over there. Just see a couple of young children and posters and things that look like it's part of a school. On my way here, I stopped off to watch some farmers taking the kernels of corn off the cobs after a corn harvest. And I think that experience is going to be a little bit like going to the beach, because after you go to the beach, of course, for about a week, you find sand everywhere. There's sand in your shoes, sand in your socks, sand in your knapsack. You know, there's sand everywhere. And from that experience with the corn harvesting, I got covered in corn dust, and I'm finding it all over the place. I'll probably be covered in corn dust for a long time. My experience in Mae Sot while I've been there is that most, if not all, of the temples have been closed when I visited. I mean, you can go into the temple grounds, but the temple building itself, the doors have always been closed and locked. I don't know if that was a response to the pandemic or something else was going on, but I'm wondering whether the doors to this temple will be open. Wow. Yeah, looks like I see an open door. Well, we'll see whether I'm able to go inside or not. And there's the outside of the building. Yeah, very distinct look, very different from other temples because of the teak construction. And I read online that there was a coffee shop here, and look at that. There really is one. Should I enjoy a coffee before I go into the temple or after? No, let's take a look around first and then see if I can get a cup of coffee there. Check this out, a bamboo cluster. Bamboo always seems to grow like that in a giant cluster, and I've wondered in the past whether that means technically this bamboo is all one giant plant and each stalk is simply like a branch coming out of the same plant. An interesting display here. Come across quite a few temples that feature roosters. This appears to be one of them. We have some roosters on either side. And there's something going on here honoring this man who is clearly related to the military. There's a sign here that might explain something of what is going on. I'll do a Google Translate on that later. But look at the interesting display. A police car, an attack helicopter, some toy construction vehicles, and the statue himself. He's holding a rooster, but he's also holding some kind of a machine gun, an assault rifle of some kind. And he's wearing a military hat and kind of military style sunglasses. And over here, a whole bunch of military clothing and toys, like toy plastic guns, slingshots. I don't know if these are donations or they're actually here for sale for children visiting the temple. Yet another mystery that will probably not be solved to any great degree. Interesting. I attempted to do a Google Translate with my phone, the camera on my phone, for the signs here, but it didn't come up with anything that made any sense. So, yeah, I don't know what this display is about. Here is the temple itself. As always, I'm going to do a walk around the outside before I go into the interior. I like that a lot. Something always special about a wood building made entirely of wood. It makes me wonder what the situation is these days with teak, because teak is kind of a protected sort of wood, isn't it? I know teak is valuable, and there probably aren't that many teak trees left in the world. So I just have this vague memory of reading about teak at one point where you can't just go into a forest and chop down as much teak as you want and take it out. I mean, it's controlled to an extent, right? Certainly a valuable wood. So I wonder about the history of a temple like this, with all the teak that was made to construct it. Yeah, beautiful setting here too. Yeah, let's head into the inside. I imagine this is hand sanitizer. Oh, look at that. It takes your temperature and produces a hand sanitizer at the same time. Very high tech. Nice wooden flooring. There's some kind of a fundraising campaign here. Looks like they're raising money to build something or repair something. And they have a money tree. And they have an interesting mechanism inside the temple. I'm assuming this is something to do with getting your fortune. You make a donation, and then there's a bunch of, you do something, and I guess it produces a number for you, and then maybe you select a piece of paper connected with that number, and that gives you your fortune. I'm doing kind of a Google Translate on this sign, and it says, Chun's voice, numbers 1 to 28, As possible, watch the needle that stops running, ready to receive blessings, wealth, prosperity, safety, coin or bank deposit according to faith power. Invite the voice of Sumsi. The translation keeps changing, so it gives me different translations for some of the text here. Actually, I wonder if I can capture it on... Yeah, there's some of the translation. Now it says invitation. Invite the voice of Sumsi. So what I suspected is right. It's some kind of a fortune-telling device. But I don't know how you trigger it to work. Just putting money in there wouldn't do anything. I guess you would have to press a button or trigger a sensor of some kind. Yeah, I don't know what you do. Interesting. I've noticed the temples are getting more technical too, because they have the usual donation boxes, but it looks like there's also a e-donation now possible using a QR code. So they're going digital. Yeah, some of the window shutters, the teak is carved. It's a small temple, as temples go in Thailand, but it's very nice. And I noticed that there's a display in a field over there, some kind of statuary. There's another shrine over here, and then statuary in a field, so I'm going to walk in that direction. Take a look over there, and then go get a cup of coffee. There's another view of the teak temple. And here's a shrine beside the main temple. And a set of figures over here. But the figures that caught my eye are up there on the hill. Very interesting looking from a distance. They look kind of like skeletal, demonish figures. I went to a well-known temple near Molamine. It has a very large reclining Buddha. It's famous for that. And inside the reclining Buddha, if I remember right, there was a kind of museum that looked a little bit like this. And I wasn't able to get all the details, but I think that statuary was a kind of representation of a type of Buddhist hell. Certainly, it was full of some very monstrous looking figures, and it looked to be like devils torturing human beings in some kind of an afterlife. I never was able to, get to the bottom of it. I just sort of walked through it and took it all in. And I'm wondering whether these figures are part of that same tradition, because from a distance I see a horned devil, and he appears to be cooking a bunch of people in a pot. He's stirring them up for dinner. And whatever's happening to these people in the pot, they don't look particularly happy about it. I think they're trying to get out, and the devil is poking them back in with his stick. Quite an interesting looking devil too, with his mustache and his horns. And our poor people are looking a little worse for wear too. Starving figures, and you can see the rib cage and bones on these guys. Very odd. This fellow is holding a drink, but he's also starving. And then we've got some very monstrous figures scattered about, like this guy with a bizarre distended belly. And another one over here with something going on with his face that would indicate not everything is normal here either. And check out the size of his hands. And over here, there's a whole series kind of on the same theme. Skeletal figures. This poor woman appears to have some kind of a slug or insect crawling up her tongue. And he has quite a stylized face and features as well. And this reminds me of the scenes from that temple in Malamine. Clearly a devil engaged in some kind of torture of this human figure. Again, a very odd face. The beard and the mustache and the horns. And this fellow's has been tortured to the point where his eyeball fell out, and something going on with that stick jammed into his mouth. And this poor guy has been poisoned or something. He's vomiting up something pretty awful, and his eyeball has popped out as well. Even stranger imagery over here. Got a whole bunch of devils with some humans on chains. And I assume these humans are being judged, and their torture is being decided by the devils. And this fellow up here, almost certainly the head devil, the judge for this, for all the proceedings here. And he even has a skull on the end of a scepter. And one devil over here reading from a book of perhaps laws for all the punishments that they have to mete out to all these humans. Same thing going on over here. And this devil has a trident. There's quite a mixture of symbolism going on here. Certainly an odd sight when you combine it with the teak temple. It's not something you would expect to find here, a display like this. I remember when I shot video from that depiction of hell at the temple in Malamine, there are actually a lot of displays I didn't take any video of because they were kind of too gruesome to put on YouTube, I thought. More like something you would expect in an R-rated horror movie, so I carefully aimed my camera away from the worst of the displays. And there were a few features up in there that I artfully kept out of the GoPro's frame as well. Fairly gruesome tableau. Well, what is not gruesome is a chance to sit down with perhaps a cold drink, cold cup of iced coffee. Let's see if we can figure that out. Yeah, the coffee shop is just down here, and as I was walking by, I think I saw a couple of people inside. So maybe I'm in luck. I asked the women here for any hint of a cold drink, but they just shook their head and looked at me in a puzzled manner. So I do see some drinks there, some Coke and refrigeration and stuff, but apparently not for me. I tried out different words on them, but they didn't seem interested in meeting me halfway to try and communicate. They just shook their head and said no. So I'm back on the road. I don't have any other places in my mind to go on this trip out into the countryside. Probably my last day here in Umphang, but I think I'll return to Umphang down another leg of this road and slowly make my way back into town and see if I pass anything interesting on the way. It's a nice looking town where this teak temple is located. Just a pleasant countryside town or a village. And this is the road that I came up from the left, and I'm going to turn right, and this will eventually wind its way back to Umphang. I have another I'm such a dummy story. I got on this road that I've been driving for quite a while, thinking I'm on my way back to Umphang, but something didn't quite feel right. I don't know, it felt like I'd gone too far. I should have run into something, an intersection, so I thought I better check my Google Maps. And guess what? I'm on my way to Myanmar. The border with Myanmar is like right around the corner, and I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to spark an international incident. I don't want to have people, I don't want men with guns running at me. So luckily I checked the map when I did, because I could have just sort of driven into Myanmar or something. Anyway, time to turn around and go in the right direction, back into Thailand, back to where I'm supposed to be going. Ay, ay, ay. It's funny that not long ago I was babbling into the GoPro, praising how Google Maps has transformed my life and made things so much easier. But even when I look at Google Maps and check it carefully, I still practically end up in the wrong country. And honestly, I'm not really that dumb. I'm not. I think I am of average intelligence. So how I constantly do these things, I blame it all on the GoPro, because it's like 70% of my brain power. Ah! Whoa! Wet tar, and it is as slippery as ice. Ay, 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 ay. Could feel the wheels of the scooter like spinning out from under me. Oh, poor thing. There's nothing worse than wet tar, is there? Just looking back at the bike, now my tires are covered in stone and sand. Making a mess of the scooter. I drove on the other side, and the tar seemed quite old. It's not fresh. It's not like I'm so dumb I would deliberately ride down freshly laid tar. And yet somehow on this side of the road, it's much wetter, and it's all sticking to my tires. Back on regular pavement. I hope I don't end up with tar and gravel stuck all over the body of the scooter. Ooh. I am back inside the village. The Teak temple is over there. So basically after my detour to Myanmar, I'm right back where I started from. I just thought I would check, look the scooter over and see how much tar has been flung everywhere and made a mess. Yeah, it's not great. Just, oh, good grief. where the wheel was kicking up tar. It kind of threw it towards the engine. Luckily there is a barrier there, kind of a flap, and it prevented the tar from actually getting into the engine. But there's a bit of a mess right underneath where that flap is, and if you touch it, you just end up with a giant tarry mess. And the mud flap, I imagine, it's actually not that bad. What about the front? No, the front is okay. There's just a little bit of a tar build-up right here at the front of the rear wheel. Yeah. I don't even know how to get this tiny bit of tar off my fingers. Sticky stuff. Makes a mess. Well, in terms of taking the wrong road, it's not entirely my fault, because I'll show you what I mean. When you look on Google Maps, the road I want to follow is shown as a big, thick line, like as if it is the main road. And if you just follow the main road, you will be naturally going in the right direction. And this is the main road ahead of me that I was driving along. And there goes the main road, you know. So I just naturally kept following the main road as I saw it. But the road I'm supposed to follow is this one here. I'm supposed to turn left here. And obviously it's a much smaller road than this one. But on Google Maps, it has it completely backwards. So that's what confused me. So this is where I was supposed to go. Down this tiny road, but Google Maps marks it as a big major road. Nice road though, very pleasant country road. Uh-oh. The road is suddenly turning much less drivable. So it's time for another Google Maps check to see whether I'm on the right road. Yeah, apparently this is where I'm supposed to be going, and it will eventually take me back to the main road going back to Umphang. Just from the way it was marked on Google Maps, I kind of expected it to be paved and quite smooth the whole way. I wasn't expecting a dirt road. But That's me for trusting Google Maps. Normally, of course, you can, but you can't take it as 100% accurate at all times. Well, just out of curiosity, I'm going to stop here for a second and see if I can gouge at that tar with a stick. Maybe while it's still wet and gooey, I can remove a lot of that stuff just by scraping it out. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, it's this whole area in here. You can see all this tar and gravel that kind of got jammed in. All right, I'm just going to try to dig some of this out, get it out of here before it solidifies. It's probably going to take some gasoline or some kind of solvent to really get that cleaned out, but I can't do that here. Just going to try and dig out the worst of it. Well, I guess you can call that a little bit of success. I managed to dig out large chunks of tar that were down there, and of course I ended up with tar all over my hands and all over my pants. It's funny how little things can make such a big, little decisions or mistakes can have such big consequences. I'm driving down that road and there was kind of a tarry side on this side and on this side, and down the middle was like, I guess what looks like dry gravel. And all I really needed to do was to steer down the middle of the road and go through the dry gravel. But, it didn't seem particularly wet on the other side. The tar seemed fine. And I don't want to drive down the middle of the road because cars coming up behind me. I always like to stay to the side of the road. So I thought, it'll be fine. Just drive down here. It looks like new tar, but it's not sticky or anything. But of course, as soon as I hit it, didn't take long for this giant mess to happen. Oh well. My life would have been so much better had I just steered down the middle and stayed in the dry gravel. But for whatever reason, I steered for the tar. I thought it was dry. I really did. I didn't think it was so wet. But yeah, with a sun like this, tar melts. That's what it does. All right. We keep going. Interesting little site at the side of the road, a field of rubber trees. And you can see them all lined up here, rows of them, and each one has a little rubber container and then a spout that was driven into the tree. Yeah, look at that. So they just cut a section of the bark away, and there's kind of a ledge down at the bottom, and then The rubber oozes out of the inside, hits this ledge, runs down the ledge till it gets to the funnel, and then drips into the pot. Yeah, it's quite solid actually right here. Yeah, but every tree has one of these pots. Wonder how liquidy it is. No, it's quite firm. Wonder if it removes tar. This could be it almost looks like soap. You think it could remove the tar from my fingers now. But yeah, there's a little rubber plantation. Let's see, I dug out all that tar that was in there, but you still ended up with some tar stuck to some of the metal here. And on this rubber, a little bit of a mess. But I guess it's not really that bad. Leaving the dirt road behind and getting back onto pavement. In a short distance ahead, I should link up with the main road. And if I turn right on that road, it will take me into the hills and over the hills and back to the border with Myanmar. And then turning to the left will take me to the intersection where all this started, where I can turn right and go back to Umphang. Still strikes me as beautiful countryside, even now at the height of the hot season. Very pleasant little villages to drive through. And here we are, back at the main road. And as I said, turning right takes me to Myanmar. Turning left will take me back to Umphang. So heading in this direction, I will be going past that checkpoint, and I wonder whether I'll be asked to stop there for a health check, ID check. When you realize how close we are to Myanmar here, it makes a lot more sense that they have that checkpoint there. They're probably there mainly to monitor people coming down this road to see whether they happen to be coming from Myanmar. Coming up on the intersection with the checkpoint. That's nice to see, because at least it tells me that I'm on the right road. I'm not lost. Okay. Okay. Well, I slowed down by the checkpoint and gave them a nice smile, gave them every opportunity to wave me over, but no one did, so I assume I'm free to go. 13 or 14 kilometers to Umphang. I think that is it for my small adventures for today. I'm back in Umphang. I just stopped off at 7-Eleven to pick up a cold drink. Gonna squirrel it away back to the guest house and enjoy that cold drink. My reward for being out there in the hot sun all this time. Yeah, successful little outing, I think. Yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. Other than other than adventures with tar, everything went pretty smoothly. I ran into the corn harvesting operation. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the teak temple, very beautiful, interesting to see, as well as the tableau of poor humans being tortured by devils. So yeah, interesting little day trip. And if all goes according to plan, I'll be on the road back to Mesot tomorrow morning. Though these days, to be honest, don't listen to a thing I say, because I could just as easily decide to stay here for one more day. But we'll see. The plan right now is to be heading to Mesot tomorrow, and that may or may not actually happen. We'll see. Whatever happens, I'll see you in the next video.